Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday, May 16th, Plymouth Select Board. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Our first order of business will be we have some new officers to swear in, and it's an absolute pleasure to be part of it. So we have Captain Higgins and, oh my God, Captain Manuel. I couldn't, yikes.
Good job.
Captain Higgins.
Good evening. My name is Jason Higgins. I'm a captain with the Plymouth Police. On behalf of Chief Dana Flynn, I'd like to introduce the three newest members of this department. These officers graduated from the Randolph Police Academy this past Thursday and have just started an intensive training program at the PPD. I hope that you will wish these officers a long, safe, and rewarding career. Here we go. Officer Dylan Ralph. Dylan has lived in Plymouth for almost 2 decades. He grew up and lives in Manomet. Officer Ralph, Selectwoman Cavaco, and this captain all realize that Manomet's probably the coolest place on the planet.
It is.
Officer Ralph graduated from Rising Tide Charter School. He's an avid basketball player and is interested in just about anything sports related. Dylan and his girlfriend just welcomed a beautiful baby girl less than a month ago, and everything that he does is for the two of them. In his own words, he's extremely humbled to be serving this community as a police officer. Officer Connor Doyle. Connor grew up in Duxbury. He was disappointed he didn't grow up in Plymouth, and he's always wanted to be a police officer. Connor's a Marine Corps veteran and has been deployed twice overseas. He recently married and thanks his wife Megan for supporting him through this process. In Officer Doyle's own words, "It was my greatest honor to serve this country and its people. Now this is another great honor to serve the town of Plymouth. I promise to do my very best every single day to make Plymouth safer." Officer Liam Stone. Liam is a graduate of the Rising Tide High School and has a family that believes in service to their community. He's a graduate of Anna Maria College, and he just started their master's degree program. In his own words, he's very excited to begin working for the town of Plymouth, and he can't wait to start serving this community. Gentlemen, the command staff of the Plymouth Police Department welcomes you into this incredibly rewarding profession. Not necessarily rewarding in the monetary sense, but in the sense of accomplishment and pride you'll have after the completion of every shift. There's nothing like responding to, answering, and handling the 911 unknown call. You truly have entered into a noble profession. I would ask our town clerk, Kelly McElreath, to come forward. She will now administer the police officer's oath of office.
The Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and that I will fairly and equitably execute the laws thereof within the extent of my authority and jurisdiction, so help me God. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon me as a police officer for the town of Plymouth Police Department, and I will obey and be bound by such rules and regulations as now are or may be from time to time established for the government of the town of Plymouth Police Department, so help me God. One last paragraph. I state your name. Hereby accept the position of police officer in and for the town of Plymouth, Police Department of the town of Plymouth. Congratulations, sirs.
Thank you, Madam Town Clerk. Now that the oath is complete, the officers need their badge. It's a badge that signifies them as peace officers, officers that are committed to serve this community, officers that will enforce our laws fairly and equitably, officers that are committed to run towards danger in whatever form it takes. I would ask Megan, Courtney, and Lisa to step forward. Officer Ralph will be pinned by his girlfriend, Courtney Bowl. Officer Doyle will be pinned by his wife, Megan. Officer Stone will be pinned by his very proud mother, Lisa Stone. It's okay to give him a hug, gentlemen. Did you get him, Mrs. Stone? Did you get him? Officers, do me a favor, take one step towards me. Turn around and face your Board of Selectmen, please.
Well, it's a very proud moment. We always enjoy doing these kinds of things, and unless, I know the board members, do you have anything you'd like to say to these fine young gentlemen? No? With all that being said, please be safe, and thank you so much for your service. You're dismissed. We'll just take a moment to let the room clear. Okay, the next order of business is public comment. We have Mrs. Page, Mr. Weber, Mr. Pinto, Mr. Cirque, and Mr. Abbott.
You have a whole lineup.
A whole lineup.
Yes.
And then this gentleman, who I'm not sure who you are, so, okay.
Okay. Mrs. Cavaco, at this your last meeting as a member of the Select Board, I am here as president of the Plymouth Retired Employees Association, along with members of my board, to simply say thank you. Thank you for your service to the town of Plymouth. Oh, okay. And also, thank you for all that you have done for the retirees of Plymouth. We want you to know how very much it is appreciated by all the retirees. Thank you again.
It's my pleasure, Mrs. Page. Mr. Weber.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. For the record, my name is Dale Weber. I'm appearing before you tonight as the president of the Collective Bargaining Relief Association, with the acronym of COBRA, to follow Sue Page's recognition for you, Madam Chair. We have presented and we will present, and we have put together a what we refer to as a dust collector, but I know that there will be no dust on this in your house, because there is no dust. And your dust would never dare to go to Betty Cavaco's home. So anyway, this is a plaque, and it's awarded to Betty Cavaco in recognition for your service to the town of Plymouth. The Collective Bargaining Relief Association honors you your integrity, effective communication, thoughtful decisions, resilience during difficult times, understanding of different perspectives, empathy, and collaboration are an inspiration to all. These fine leadership qualities and your steadfast efforts bring honor to you, to us, and to all those living and working in America's hometown. This is awarded the 16th day of May 2023, and it is signed by the table officers of Cobra. With us tonight are many members of Cobra and the different groups. They're not planning on speaking, but you know that my comments are echoed by them. Also, Vice President Butch Machado, former Select Board member Machado, is here tonight, and he has the actual plaque for presentation to you, and he's approaching you now with that.
If I could get out of here, Butch, I would.
Oh, come on. You can. Dale, come on up here. We're gonna, if you don't mind, we'd like to get a couple of shots for our monthly newsletter, Betty. Thank you for everything you've done for us. Continue to do. Thank you. And if you can hold this plaque, let her get it a row between two fronds.
I'll get behind you guys. Get right out front.
Adam, can you grab this picture? Hold on 1 minute. How is it? All right, hold on one more. Dickie, please come down, because this last round of negotiations and for all the ones you've done, I'd like to have you in this picture too for our monthly newsletter. Done plenty for everybody in this town. You're a generous man and my best friend.
That's beautiful.
So thank you, Betty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I'm sure our paths will meet again.
Oh, Mr. Pinto. Mr. Pinto.
Good evening, everyone. Tom Pinto. Continue to spread the love here, Betty. So tonight I'm here to speak as the president of the Education Association of Plymouth and Carver and the spokesperson for the Coalition of Plymouth Employees. Many are here today in support. With me is Laurie Enos.
Good evening, Lori Enos. I'm the Vice President of the Plymouth Association of Teachers.
So I'm pleased to be here to celebrate, and I thank the chair, Betty, for all she's given to the town of Plymouth and the employees of Plymouth. Betty has had a tremendous impact on her town. She has given countless hours of service promoting many wonderful causes. Winterfest, White Horse Beach, to name a few. Under Betty's leadership, we always knew we had a strong supporter of Plymouth employees. She cared about the town and the employees that worked for her. Recently, we were able to create a 6-year health insurance agreement, to help Mr. Quinto, an accomplishment that's never been done in the town of Plymouth. On behalf of the Education Association of Plymouth and Carver, we want to thank you and present you with a beach bag, EAPC beach bag, in hopes that you'll spend more time with your family and more time this summer at White Horse Beach. Thank you, Betty.
I didn't bring Kleenex. I'm not supposed to be getting emotional. I need a Kleenex if anybody has any out there. But I think that some of the things that people don't realize is that this was a true pleasure for me. I loved representing our town. One of the biggest things that I am going to miss is my interaction with everyone, and especially this board. Despite what people may or may not think, we get along very well. We respect each other very well. Although we may not agree on things, I'm really going to miss this being with them. I love teasing John about his time machine. You know, I think I'm just going to have to call him and do that on a regular basis. And I have to say that in my experience as serving for 6 years on this board, this is the best board Plymouth has ever had. We have really literally moved mountains, not only for our residents, but for our employees and our retirees. And that's important to all of us. So I... Thank you all so much for allowing me to be your representative, and honestly, it truly was a pleasure. I am looking forward to spending some little bit more time with my family. I did put my name in to be town meeting member because I don't think I could go cold turkey. So, and I'm really looking forward to that ability to be sitting out in the audience with you folks the next time. So. Like I said, I really appreciate everything, all of our relationships that we have built. They are not going to go away because I'm not in office. So, and if there's anything out there that anyone ever needs, they know that they can reach out and ask me to help them, and I will certainly be there for them. So, thank you so much. Is there, I think we have more public comment. Mr. Cirque.
Good evening, Rich Cirque, Precinct 2, Town Meeting Member. Last week, during public comment, I explained why Ms. Cavaco's April 24th letter to Pine Barrens, threatening not to extend Pine Barrens' quote-unquote 5-year lease of 158 Center Hill Road, was both legally unsupportable and politically motivated. At that time, I assumed, as did everyone else, that the lease would indeed expire at the end of 5 years on July 31, 2024. But afterwards, just to be sure, I made it my business to get a copy of the lease to confirm that it would indeed terminate at the end of 5 years. What I found was astounding. On the very first page of the lease, there's a provision giving Pine Barrens the option, at its election, to extend the 5-year term for 2 additional 5-year periods. That means that the town will have no right to refuse to extend the lease after 5 years, and no right to refuse to extend the lease after 10 years if Pine Barrens exercises its option to extend. Thus, Mr. Cavaco's letter was not only legally unsupportable and politically motivated, it was factually unsupportable too. I would like any other board members who voted in favor of sending this letter to raise his hand. 1. What kind of a person sends out a letter like this? Until I measured Ms. Cavaco's letter against the terms of the lease, I had underestimated the depth of her venality. My eyes are wide open now, as are the eyes of the townspeople.
Mr. Cirque, I hate to inform you that every single board member knew that letter was going out and voted for that. So I understand that you're a zoning attorney. You might want to stick to that and let our municipal attorneys do what they need to do, because that letter is not being retracted. That letter states, if you continue reading, that it's through the approval of the board that that first 5-year and second year would be approved by the board to whether it moves forward.
It's the unilateral right of the tenant to extend, not once but twice.
With the permission of the board. So where this,
No.
yes, it is.
It's they have the unilateral right.
Mr. Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last week at your meeting, David Golden, an opponent of the charter, stated that I was not entirely accurate on a particular charter fact during the recent debate. His statement was misleading, and because he's spreading this misinformation on social media, I want to set the record straight and be sure that Plymouth voters know the whole truth. The statutory charter process requires that the Charter Commission submit to the Attorney General a preliminary draft of the charter on or before a fixed date, which in our case was September 15th last year. We did that, and our preliminary draft contained every change in the organizational structure and offices of town officials and division of authority among town officials of the town government. Every change, including the expansion of the select board to 7 members, 3 of which are district members, the election of the moderator by the town meeting, and importantly, the preliminary draft had a note at the beginning of Chapter 9, the transition chapter, which read as follows: transition provisions may be revised or expanded as the Charter Commission completes its deliberations. The Attorney General then had 4 weeks to issue a written opinion citing any conflict between the proposed charter and the constitutional laws of the state. She issued an opinion that there was no such conflict. The only items later put into the final report were the transition provisions and minor non-substantive edits. The Commission submitted the final report to this board on November 15th, 2022. In order to remove any doubts regarding the legality of shortening the terms of the moderator and the select board members, I asked our Commission counsel at Anderson and Krieger to give us his legal opinion. He responded as follows: your best argument, which has the virtue of being the correct, is that the dissolution of existing boards and the shortening of the terms of office to which officers were previously elected is a power held by the legislature and is therefore one that can be exercised by a town in the adoption or amendment of a charter. And since Mr. Goldman's statement mentioned the Attorney General, I asked our Commission counsel to comment on the process that we followed here, which is a common process of a Charter Commission adding transition provisions near the end of the work, which would be frequently after the Attorney General had rendered its opinion on the charter at the preliminary report. Our Commission counsel sent me an email just this last Friday, May 12th, reading as follows. I'm quoting, I spoke to Kelly Gunnigan, how she was the Assistant Attorney General in Boston who reviewed the Plymouth Charter. I spoke to Kelly Gunnigan at the Attorney General's office about this yesterday, and that would have been last Thursday, May 11th. And she made 2 important points. First, she had no concerns about changes to the draft charter that were not in the preliminary report, which is the version reviewed by the AG's office, that were included in the final report, which the AG's office does not review. Second, while she did not immediately recall an example of a charter amendment that curtailed the terms of certain officers in quite this way, she noted that every charter in which a town has adopted a city form of government, Braintree being the most recent, the tenure of offices elected are eliminated. The offices that are then in office are eliminated as they move from a town to a city. There are many other examples. I don't see any material difference between, say, abolishing the select board in favor of a manager-council form of government and reorganizing the select board with a new election structure as the Plymouth Charter Commission has done. In either case...
Mr. Abbott, your 3 minutes is up. How much more time do you need?
Pardon me?
Your 3 minutes is up. How much more time do you need?
About another 45 seconds.
Okay.
In either case, the town has the power to end the tenure of existing officers and start fresh with a new elected board. Bottom line, it's the opinion of our commission legal counsel that our charter is legal in all respects. Mr. Golden's statement was incomplete and therefore was misleading. Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, Mr. Golden isn't here to defend his actions, which I believe wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please state your name for the record.
Sure. Dan Bell, 9 Stetson Court, and I am ending my first and only term as a town meeting member. And I figured I'd come up just to let everybody know why I'm choosing to not continue. But it's kind of obvious tonight. Betty, thank you for the years of service, and to all you guys. It's not easy to come up and get sand kicked in your face on your last day. But I guess that's part of it. Anyways, things have changed in my life, and I'm not going to make time to be a town meeting member. But there's a few reasons why. And I see Pat is here, that's our chair. She did a great job, and I really liked working with her. But it's the overall feeling that it just does not make an impact. One of the main reasons is that 90% of the votes or more just follow the FinCom recommendation. There's a lot of housekeeping that gets thrown out onto, into the meeting that is like, does this really need debate? I mean, look at the last town meeting where we spent 45 minutes, I think, debating a $30,000 appropriation that was actually already appropriated and the bills just didn't get paid. I did the math. I did the math on that one, and I figured, okay, it's a $250 million town budget. I think I'm right with that number, thereabouts. And $30,000, that equals, as far as my household budget, I'd be debating on whether I wanted to pay a $3 bill. So I don't know. I was just like, this is a little bit ridiculous. I don't want to be all negative. Some of the things that were really good is that suddenly, as a town meeting member, I started getting emails about committee meetings and different activities that were associated with the town because my name was on the master sheet, which was great. So yeah, the whole opportunity to speak on the floor too, if something isn't going to go your way, like at the special town meeting. Unfortunately, I couldn't log into that. That was my first meeting, and being a hybrid, I had a computer issue. But I come from a background of media. I used to work with PAC TV. I worked with Sandwich Community Television, all as a government meeting coordinator. And one of the meetings I did was up in Kingston. And there was one meeting there that Ali DiMacedo turned vote just by selling his point. And I don't even think he was a representative beyond a member. And I don't know, maybe Kingston doesn't even have a member. I can't tell you whether they're a representative town meeting or whether it's just citizens, but he turned the vote and actually got his argument bought. And that's a great thing. That's a great benefit to town meetings. So, but that's all something that could be done ahead of time. A lot of town meeting members seem to come in and just make their argument there on the spot at the moment without scheduling the time to speak with the moderator up beforehand. So with those reasons, I'm pretty much out. The final nail in the coffin, really, though, is I think there's inadequate security at town meeting. I would have liked to have seen metal detectors. This is a violent society we're living in, and I don't really feel like I want to be sitting there for 6 hours in a meeting that people can come and go. So for those reasons, I'm out. Thank you all for doing what you do.
Thank you very much. Mr. Barawana, and then Mr. Leiden.
Thank you. Got all bogged down. Brian Barawana, Precinct 2, much more peaceful side of the precinct than the previous member that spoke. Also, on the thing on the charter, I implore everyone to vote no. It's a sham charter. But aside from that, Betty, we got bogged down here. Thank you very much for what you did for the town of Plymouth, the employees, and on behalf of the Plymouth firefighters, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Betty, we love you.
Thank you.
Steve Leiden, there's an old saying that if you give 6 attorneys an issue, you'll get 6 different answers. So now we have to pick on which do you want. You want Mr. Abbott, you want Mr. Golden's. Personally, I'm going Mr. Golden because the charter to me is something that never should have been done. Mr. Abbott says they have the power to change my vote for the moderator and selectmen. You want people to vote. You tell them, get out and vote. Now you're telling me my vote doesn't really matter because we can have a group, a charter commission to change it. What the hell did I vote for? You know, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, they have the power, but they didn't have the right to do that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anthony? No public comment? Okay, so now we'll go on to the next order of business, license and administrative notes. If we could have a motion to move the group, unless anyone has any questions.
Motion to move as a group. Second.
Motion to move by Mr. Helms, seconded by Mr. Mahoney. Discussion? All those in favor?
I'm sorry, I think he had.
Oh, discussion? Do you have discussion?
I was waving by.
Oh.
I'm sorry. That's okay.
All those in favor?
Do we need roll call?
Roll call. Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Quintal?
Yes.
And myself, yes.
Charlie.
Oh,
What about Mr. Blood?
sorry. Sorry.
Yes.
Thank you, and it's unanimous. Okay. Now, next is the proposed reorganization Phase 3 by Mr. Brandisi.
Okay, I'm going to do this from this seat because I don't like having my back turned towards the audience. Anthony, can we bring that slide back up? There we go. Okay, so this is the Phase 3, the last and final proposed reorganization. As you know, last week we covered the police department and the harbor master's office. So today's discussion is focused primarily on what is now the Community Resources Department and what is also Inspectional Services Department. So like I had done last week, I I'm showing you the table of organization expanded within those departments, so you can see which divisions fall under those various departments. So this is what we're proposing today. Now, this is going to be a work in progress because, in summary, what I'm proposing is to take the framework of the Community Resources Department and move that to a Health and Human Services mission-oriented department. And so some may ask why. And so from the memo I had provided the board, just some quick facts that we were able to lift from the Community Health Needs Assessment that was conducted by BID Hospital. 45% of Plymouth residents stated they are using more substances than prior to the pandemic. 35% of Plymouth residents stated that they have had 15 or more poor mental health days in the past month. 18% of survey respondents stated they would like their community to have better access to healthy food. 25% of Plymouth residents are worried about their ability to purchase groceries in the coming weeks. The percentage of adult obesity was higher in Plymouth than the statewide average. And last, 44% of survey respondents stated the need for more affordable housing. So the data I provide is just a snapshot of the varying community needs that we're starting to experience here in Plymouth. And this department, again, is focused on being a responsive organization to those varying needs. As you all know, Barry de Blasio retired back in April. We have replaced Mr. de Blasio with an interim director. His name is James Gardner. He served for the City of Worcester as the Health and Human Services Commissioner for a number of years. He has since retired and has found a retirement home down the Cape. He is going to help us transform this organization into the Health and Human Services Department. You can see we have a very strong framework that already exists with our Center for Active Living, our library, our recreation division, and our veterans division. And then we also support the disabilities office. Other items we want to consider as we move towards this organization is moving the health division, which is now in inspection services, over to this new form department. And then also considering creating a human rights commission as well. That's something that would be under consideration. We would certainly work with the Committee on No Place for Hate. Human Rights Commission is the next step up from a No Place for Hate committee, so that's something we want to explore a little bit further. We'd also like to explore the possibility of creating working with a youth commission, which was created not that long ago, and seeing what we can do around supporting our youth, working with the schools as well. So again, this is going to be a work in progress over the next 3 to 6 months, and it's something that I expect to bring back to the board once it's final.
Any questions from Mr. Brandisi? Nope. And do I have a motion?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mahoney, seconded by Mr. Helm. Discussion? All those in favor? Mr. Bletzer?
I'm in favor, yes.
Mr. Mahoney? Yes. Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Quintal?
Yes.
And myself, yes, it's unanimous. Thank you. I just wanted to go back to one of the administrative notes quickly. The candidate for the Plymouth Retirement Board is here, so I just wanted to recognize the board will vote to appoint Sharon LaRosa to the Plymouth Retirement Board effective immediately for a term to expire June 30th, 2026. So we already voted in. Congratulations. You're going to have a lot of fun on the retirement board, I'm sure, especially with the gentleman sitting next to you. So congratulations and thank you for your service. So the next order, oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So one of the things that I thought was important that Mr. Brandisi put on his, or had us put on the agenda was the FY23 Selectmen Board Goals and Priorities Year in Review presentation. And once you see it, I'm thrilled that this board was able to accomplish so much in so little time. Go ahead.
Great. So while, yep, no rush, Anthony. So while Anthony tees up that presentation, I just want to go back and just spend a few minutes talking about the 3 different phases we went through for reorganization. And so what I like to say to folks is that what we're really trying to become is more flexible, more accountable, and then more responsive to community needs. You know, when we think about flexibility, oftentimes, you know, we're a regulatory agency in some respect, and so, you know, we have to enforce laws, statutes, and things of that nature, but, you know, sometimes things aren't always black and white. And so what we're trying to get across the spectrum of all of our different departments is to be more flexible and to work with businesses, work with our residents, and try to find a way to yes. And then accountable. We are accountable to the Board of Selectmen, we are accountable to town meeting members, but most importantly, we're accountable to our residents. And so accountability, I think, is something that we are really trying to impress upon from our frontline staff all the way up to our administrators. And then last, as I touched upon with the Health and Human Services presentation, is just to be more responsive. Responsive to the ebbs and flows of what's happening daily, but be more responsive to the evolution of town government and what's happening in our community. We can no longer continue to do business like they have in 2000, in 2010, and even 2015. So having that flexibility and that accountability and that responsiveness, I think these reorganizations will get us moving in that direction. And so now that our presentation's up, let's do a year in review. Anthony, did you play the music for the year in review? All right, so again, as the chair pointed out, we went through a process last year, so let's bring everybody back to about 12 months ago. We worked with all of our departments and our division heads. We engaged them, we had conversations around creating goals and priorities, setting benchmarks so that we can measure ourselves for success in the year. We then brought that information back to the board. The board reviewed it. There are items that the board removed. There are items that the board added. And so that set what it was, these goals and priorities. So normally we probably would want to do this in the June time period, but given everything that's going on with the chair's last meeting, we thought it's best to kind of talk about the things we were able to accomplish these past 12 months. So this slide deck, so this slide right here is just kind of, it's going to give you an overview of how this thing is organized. So if you see a green check mark, that means we've completed it. If you see this blue check mark that's halfway complete, it means it's in progress. And then there's this blue plus mark. Those are items that were not on this document. So as you all know, every Tuesday night at the end of the meeting, board members are hearing their constituent concerns day in and day out, and so oftentimes we get asked or tasked with following up on some of these items. So we had to be responsive to those requests, and so this blue plus mark represents all the things that were added on during the course of the year. And I have to say, we're probably missing a lot here, but these are the items that we were able to capture with this presentation. And thank you, Anthony, for putting this presentation together. So I'm going to try not to read everything and go through everything, because this honestly could probably take me over an hour, but I'm not going to do that to everybody. But as you remember, one of our buckets or domain areas was to ensure a safe and healthy community. And so you see in the top, these are the things that we're able to complete. So we know, when we talked about last week, we're moving our dispatch center over to the Sheriff's Department. That'll create for a more responsive, more efficient 911 system. Under the chief's leadership, we've expanded the SRO program. We've actually expanded that in the sense that not only adding officers, but able to arm them in such a way to protect our students. The fire chief just presented a few weeks back. The fire operations study has been complete. Now we're going to move that next year into implementation. This is a big one, the age and dementia-friendly community designation. This is going to take us years. but under the leadership of Selectman Helm, who's chairing this committee over at the Cal, and in the leadership of Michelle Brady, we know we'll get there in the next year or so. The police body-worn camera program, we've done everything but appropriate a sum of money. So our policies are complete, working with the unions has been completed. We plan to move within the next 2 months to an appropriation of ARPA dollars, we hope, in order to buy the body-worn cameras, and then we would then move to complete implementation by September 1st. And to identify and engage community at-risk populations, I mean, this is really what Health and Human Services is all about. So, you know, we're starting that conversation today, and then we'll move forward in FY24 with doing our own assessment. The full-day summer camp, there's our rec director, she was here, was working on this, but we hit a roadblock when we were trying to think about Hedges Pond as a place to have a full-day summer camp. As you know, we've run into a roadblock with some of the structures that are there, so once we remove those structures, we'll then go ahead and revisit this goal again. But we were moving quickly on this one. Identify blight properties. So this is something that through the Commission of Inspectional Services, working with the Attorney General's office, we've been able to identify a number of blight properties and get them into compliance. The next step now with the Commissioner, and he's actively working on developing a nuisance bylaw that we will take to town meeting. So again, we're halfway there, we're not fully there, so it's a work in progress, but we are making strong progress in that respect. So these are some of the add-ons during this past year. We have a comfort dog program that's working with a second clinician. So remember last year we had one mental health clinician who was working with our PD. Now we have a second one, and we have a comfort dog who also goes out with our clinician as well. Land acquisitions and infrastructure improvements. So again, we worked with 80 Makepeace. They donated a 2-acre parcel of land for this land acquisition. This will help us identify the best location to, in years to come, to construct a new fire station down in South Plymouth. Ensuring the safety of emergency housing residents. So in short, that was the town's response to the migrant issue that transpired this past fall. That took a lot of time, a lot of energy. No one could have predicted it, but a number of our departments came together to respond in such a great fashion. Sheltering team was developed by our emergency management director. We've never had a sheltering team, but this came out of a meeting we held down at the EOC, where we realized that we need volunteers, whether it's for a cooling center or for a warming shelter during the winter time period. So that was created. And then, as you know, through town meeting support, we were able to pass the bylaw to create an elderly and disabled tax assistance committee, which is actively working and implementing this new program. Again, all new add-ons during the course of this past year. So financial planning, did I miss one? So financial planning, so working with our federal and state partners, we secured a number of financial earmarks, state earmarks. The finance director created a 10-year capital improvement plan, which was, we've never had a 10-year capital improvement plan. Now we can look out 10 years to see what our needs will be. Although when we look at them, they're large. So then we have to go ahead and move forward and create a financial plan around some of these capital needs, such as a facilities management plan, working with our finance director and assistant town manager. We've come up with a couple different creative ideas to fund the facilities management program, but still that's a work in progress. So we've had a financial forecasting tool in years past. We're actually taking that apart and putting it back together so that it can be a little bit more useful, so that we can predict our revenues and predict our expenses for a town meeting in years to come. We were able to sell. The board back in June made a commitment to town meeting that they would sell any of our underutilized properties. So this just about a month ago, we were able to sell the property at South Meadow Road. We're actively trying to dispose of the old fire station in North Plymouth, and I think we're going to hold on to Long Pond Road for some time. Grant awards, so this is just a snapshot of some of the grant awards, so about $6.5 million in grant awards. This year alone, we've already applied for $25 million in grants. This $6.4 million does not represent the grants that we had received prior to achieving this goal. For example, the $25 million Army Corps project that's coming to the town the next year or so. Another add-on was this OPEB liability analysis. So now that we have this new PEC, we've submitted this new PEC agreement to the actuaries, who are now looking at that and will rate that against our OPEB liability. We're predicting that our liability, we may see a dip in our liability because of the new PEC agreement. So communicate and engage with the public. So this is heavy on technology. So we rolled out 2 weeks ago the new See-Click Fix program, which is being heavily utilized by our community right now. A new website was created. A lot of new enhancements to our customer service experience at Town Hall. For example, our kiosk, which you can find in the 2 different lobbies that help folks navigate their way through Town Hall. There's been other changes in how we deliver our customer service experience. We have a help desk on the main floor here, and our treasurer collector's office has changed how they give out beach stickers and transfer station stickers to be more accommodating to all of our citizens. And then the develop a townwide communications plan, as you know, that's a big one for me. We've been able to not complete the communications plan, but you know, we've created different modes of delivering that message, whether that's through social media, through PAC TV, engaging the local print media, and just to try to get the proper message out. Improve the online bill notification and payment tool. Again, a work in progress, but for 2 years in a row, we know we've been getting complaints from folks saying they haven't received their bills. So we've created a new online tool where folks can sign up and then they'll get their bills electronically versus having to wait for the mail. So again, that's a work in progress. We haven't totally rolled that one out just yet. The phone system, we all can agree, is a problem. I often get phone calls from board members and others saying we can't get through to such and such department. So we're actively trying to figure that out. In some of our offices, I saw the town clerk, she's already created, what's that system? Where it bounces? The hunt, changed the system to a hunt group, so instead of calling one line directly, it bounces to all the phone lines, so anyone, if somebody's not at the desk, somebody else can pick it up. That wasn't in place a year ago, so just trying to think about other ways to be more accommodating to those folks that are calling Town Hall. And just generally technology upgrades. The Shallop room, the Atlantic room has technology upgrades, the Great Hall. This room here has new technology to try to create the customer service experience a little bit better. And then just creating a first hybrid town meeting and using owls to help us with some of our hybrid meetings. I talked already about engaging local and regional media outlets. The town email, I think one of the folks on the public comments spoke today about one thing he really appreciated was getting more and more information coming out of Town Hall. And that was enhancing our email listservs and a lot of the great work Anthony did just pushing information through those listservs. Social media archiving is something that we created this past year. And then, you know, new accounts, Instagram, LinkedIn, all different social media platforms that didn't exist just even a year ago. Again, trying to find people and meet them where they're at. So we all can agree that this is something that, you know, we really want to do more and more on, really focusing on economic development and really working with our business sector. We have a task force that's been created. They've met a few times this past year that will continue to think of policies around economic development. The OpenGov, which Nick Mayo was here 2 weeks ago, and the e-permitting system really enhances our contractors and how they can do business here at Town Hall. And then creating this one-stop shop program for town permitting. So now you don't have to drive around town, all around town to apply for a building permit. You can come to Town Hall, you can meet with the the fire prevention office, the building inspector, the wiring inspector, the plumbing inspector, all in one office. You don't have to go down to fire headquarters to have these same conversations. So again, trying to make it a little more efficient, a little bit easier for folks to do business here in town. We had led by the Economic Development Foundation and the Department of Environmental Affairs. We supported the Blue Economy Conference and want to work with our fishermen, lobstermen, and others around blue economy, knowing that we think this is going to be one of our big items in the future. We passed 2 bylaws last fall around zoning to help enhance economic development here in town. Digital records is probably going to be a 5-year project, but we received funding in the fall. Our public records access officer is in the process of digitizing all of our records so that it'll be easy to go online. You click on one parcel and it'll give you, it'll link, every public document will be linked to that parcel through this digitizing program. And so again, trying to support the downtown master plan hasn't gone underway just yet, but Merchant Association is now up and running. Still need work to do in a facade improvement program and some of our daily maintenance downtown. So a little bit more work has to get done on that end, but the Merchant Association is live and vibrant. Graffiti Task Force, this came as a request through, I believe it was Selectman Quintal asked us to pull together a graffiti task force. We have the task force together. It's a multidisciplinary task force looking at ways to try to address graffiti in our community. And then I'm happy to report, as of last week, we think we have our lobstermen and our fishermen are all on board. The American Cruise Lines is on board. So we are actually working out a pilot program for this August with 3 stops with the American Cruise Line. So again, nothing we could have predicted a year ago, but something that came to us and we took full advantage of it. It was a lot of work working with our lobstermen on that to make sure everybody was satisfied with the cruise line and when they tie up. All right, improve town infrastructure and protect the environment. Cemetery land was a big issue last year. We now know where we can build a cemetery. We have funds appropriated for a cemetery. We're going to start designing the cemetery. So more to come on that, but we were able to check that one off. But again, still more work to do in that vein. We were able to achieve the Green Community designation by our climate resiliency planner, Patrick Farah and others came together working with the CANS committee on that and the Green Community Committee as well. I think we have how many vehicles now, electric vehicles? 6? 6 vehicles are now electric vehicles. We're planning on purchasing another 4 vehicles in FY24. So those vehicles, again, we've received a lot of positive feedback in that front. A tracking program for septic systems. This came directly from public health. So again, this is something that, as you all know, it's a big problem. Septic systems down the Cape, it's starting to creep its way up into the Plymouth area. So we're starting to focus a lot of our energy around how we deal with septic contamination. Our climate resiliency plan is now actively engaged on a climate action plan. That's going to take at least a year, if not 2 years, to complete, but that's already started. The wastewater treatment plant needs and upgrades have been identified, so that's both at our main wastewater treatment plant and our treatment plant over at the airport as well. So upgrades will commence in the very near future, I would say within the next 2 to 3 months. So identify future water sources and water quality betterments. This was one that I was really hoping that last year we were actively engaged with a number of landowners around acquiring land for future water sources. This is going to take longer than I thought, probably a couple more years, but I'm hopeful that in the next 2 to 3 years we'll have identified at least 5 parcels of land that we can build wells in. So really trying to secure our water sources for any upwards of 50 to 75 years once we complete this project. And then again, something that we didn't predict, but we have a problem with firm capacity in West Plymouth as far as water. And we were able to work out an agreement with Claremont. They're going to build a booster station. So we don't have a water deficit as much as we have a problem moving water from one part of town to the other part. And that's what the booster station is going to do for us. So Again, didn't predict this problem was going to come up, but under the leadership of our DPW director, who's sitting in the back there, we were able to finalize this agreement. The Sims House Task Force came together. They brought, after convening for a better part of 3 months, they delivered a set of recommendations to the select board. One of those was to issue an RFP on the disposition of Sims House. So again, not predicted, something we pulled together last minute and able to complete that project. A lot of conversations last summer about all of our parks and our beaches. So White Horse Beach parking, we were able to issue an RFP. We were able to get an organization to provide enforcement down there. I think we spent about $40,000 for the contractor, brought in about $50,000 worth of revenue, so I would say that was a success. And then now we have a new portable restroom. We piloted that last September. That portable restroom is now over on Taylor Ave and will be used this entire summer. Allerton Street improvements, again, something else we had to respond to neighborhood needs. We expect to see the Allerton Street Park improvements completed in the next month or two. Morton Park traffic plan and how we kind of manage the beachgoers in Morton Park this summer. We were able to come up with a set of recommendations for that based upon, again, neighborhood needs. I mentioned a little bit about Hedges Pond earlier. Hedges Pond, we will tear down those buildings in the next few months and then hopefully get that back on short order so that we can really think about how we want to use Hedges Pond in the future, whether that be a summer camp, a dog park, or things of that nature. Speaking of dog parks, we have a dog park committee now, again chaired by Selectman Helm, exploring a couple different options out there, and I think there's going to be a presentation in the next couple of weeks, May 30th, by Selectman Helm around the future of dog parks here in town. So again, a lot of staff support with that committee as well. The FOG program was revised. That's fats, oil, and grease. So it's a revision to the existing rules and regulations. We recognize that we still had a number of SSOs in our town, and so we had to revise the FOG regulations in order to respond to those SSOs. Roadway improvements, 735 tons of asphalt, responding to 525 pothole concerns. I know everybody in this room knows it's a big community, but we have a very small DPW compared to the size of this community. So I always like to compare our Plymouth to Worcester. Worcester's 33 square miles, has 500 DPW employees. We have 104 square miles with about 130 DPW employees. So this team of DPW staff is doing a lot of work and trying to cover a lot of areas. So a lot of work was done in that respect this past year. Strengthen the town's workforce, and I think a lot of the union folks that were here today really highlighted the chairman's focus in our employees. And so if you kind of like look around the things that took place with just trying to engage employees, focus on their morale, we had tree lighting festival in front of town hall, we gave out candy out of town hall during the Halloween event, and we had coffee events. They appreciate the health insurance agreement, they appreciate the salary increases and the equity adjustments, but what they also appreciate is just coming to work and feeling like they're a part of the team. And so the Human Resource Department did a lot of work in that respect as well. And then just modernize and standardize their practices. Had anybody a year ago ever been onboarded in this town? Very antiquated, very old. Now everything's 21st century, click a button and everything gets sent. So again, they put a lot of work into it, just trying to modernize HR. Recruit and maintain professional staff. We had a large turnover just in the administrative level this past year. We lost Barry de Blasio, Jonathan Beater, Ed Bradley, our fire chief. We had a new town clerk that came on board. So, just our administrative staff, I think we had at least 50% new assistant town manager, new HR director. So, there was a lot of work as it relates to succession planning, and I think there's going to be more work. We know that some of our more long-term administrators are going to be leaving in the next few years, so we have to continue to think about succession planning. We talked about that not too long ago here in this room. The AED and CPI training program, we are actively trying to acquire AEDs. Just 2 weeks ago, the DPW certified, I want to say 60 to 70 DPW employees in AED and CPR. We want to roll that out to town hall employees as well and other employees. Talked about successful negotiations with PEC. I think it was maybe it was Mr. Weber who said this was like a historic PEC agreement, a 6-year agreement that is just going to kind of change the trajectory of our town finances. So that is probably one of the biggest successes this past year, in large part to the board. And then create a health and medical safety net program for our town retirees. So this was a commitment we made to Priya that we would create a program that would allow all active employees and even retired employees to submit, on a regular basis to this safety net program. This money would be used to help those retirees that are in need. So we did some reclasses with our non-union and OP positions. And then another big one this past year was updating our personnel bylaw and creating the personnel code. That'll make government much more efficient by moving some of these changes to the select board versus having to go to town meeting. And then a couple last ones here. We talked about the reorganization plan the last 3 weeks. So I'm happy. So I want to say I started March 16th, 2022. And over that course of the 12 months, I'm happy to say, in large part because of our administration, Brad Brothers, Silvio Gennaro from HR, we didn't have one arbitration hearing in those first 12 months. So we will have some coming up, but some of our labor attorneys said, Town of Plymouth would average sometimes 20 to 25 arbitration hearings per year. So that was a big win that, we were able to resolve the issues before we had to go to Boston and go to DLR. So that's a time savings in labor costs, attorney costs, and just in a time suck with just our employees having to get involved in those hearings. So again, that was a big win. Safety compliance with various trainings and programs, whether that's through Meyer or through our safety officer at the DPW. And then I think I already talked about modernizing human resource operations. So again, just creating efficient town government. So we enhance our agenda management system by creating workflows and tracking so that we can see exactly what the requests are and then deliver on those in an efficient time frame. I talked already about how we changed how we issue beach and pond stickers and transfer stations permits through our treasure collector's office. One item that we're still working on, I know that the chief has a goal of creating a substation for police. I know we talked about doing something similar for our residents in South Plymouth as far as having like a mini town hall down there. So we have a lot more work to do. There's costs associated with that, and given our budget this past year, that just wasn't feasible. But we recognize that, if you live in South Plymouth and you want to get a birth certificate, you got to pack a lunch for the drive up here, find a parking spot, get your birth certificate, and drive home. It's some time. So if we can do something to try to provide services to the southern part of Plymouth, we really want to do that. Updating policies and bylaws was a big one last year. We revised 16 of our select board policies. We have about 50 in total, so we're about a third of the way there. And then I mentioned last week the formation of a quality council. Our quality council is a group of active employees who are really focused on quality improvement and quality assurance. And then just last, I'll end here, this is for future generations. These are some of the big long-term items that we really need to focus in on. I talked already about water quality, how this is a big one. I think Selectman Mahoney would say water, water, water. It's our future, and we need to secure that. And so we plan to do that. And then working with our planning department and our planning board around updating our master plans, both the master plan generally speaking, but our village center plans as well. And then wanting to work with the school department still, talking about facilities management and other opportunities to consolidate some of our work. And then last, we know that we have a lot of underutilized town-owned properties, and we know that this is going to be a big goal for FY24, looking at this massive spreadsheet of all these parcels of land the town owns and figuring out, what's the best approach and how do we deal with those properties. So that's a lot. I try to keep it as succinct as possible, but there's a lot to go through, and we'll post this document online so folks are aware of some of the things that we're able to complete. One thing we started to do last fall is, in the past, we always meet with our department heads every Tuesday, but we were missing the division heads. And they're a big participant in the work that we do. So we started to meet with them on a quarterly basis so that they're actively involved in these conversations. And I think this set of goals that we talked about today is just kind of it's evidence that everybody in the organization really care about their job. And so, as I would say to Anthony, one of our acronyms is GAS. And what does that mean, Anthony? It means give a shit. And so what we say to our employees is like, you got to come to work every day, and you have to care about your job, and we want you to care. And so that's an acronym we pass around a lot because we really expect them to give a shit about the work that they do. So I'll end there. I think that's probably the best way to end this conversation, and turn it back to the board.
Thanks so much, Derek. There's a lot of gas up here, so, I mean, that you care. And when you actually see all these accomplishments in such a little time, it's really unbelievable how we were able to work through all this stuff. And, when you talk about the arbitrations and grievances, I mean, everybody knows that they used to drive me absolutely insane. And when you're talking 20, 25 arbitrations and grievances and all that stuff, it's well over $500,000 that the taxpayers would be burdened with. So I'm excited. I don't know if anybody else has anything to say. Mr. Mahoney, you look like you're perched for a little ride in the time machine.
No, but had to get one in, didn't you?
Just one.
So, no, Derek, great job on the presentation there. Just, Madam Chair, just a couple of quick comments. And obviously, there's a lot of material there to go over, but, with proper planning, I think you referenced the donation of the 2 acres of land for the fire station down off of Bourne Road. So, when you're a community of 104 square miles, you shouldn't have to go hat in hand to a private property owner to get a 2-acre donation. And, with proper short and long-term planning, we can avoid those things in the future. When we talk about wells and water, my colleague, Mr. Helm, I think a month or 2 ago, brought up the work of the Water Conservation Committee, and they had 3 suggestions for us, and they did an excellent job. And it's obviously a big problem with respect to wells is where are we going to locate them? And you referenced like 5 locations that could possibly be secured for a well, but there's a multitude of other things that goes into conservation of water also, and we need to make sure that, in the next month or 2 that we come back and take a look at those 3 recommendations again. And then I'll just leave it the last point here was that, Barry de Blasio just retired. That solution he had for Hedges Pond was excellent. And I hope that we keep that on the back burner as we move forward. I know some of the smaller outbuildings are going to come down hopefully in the next few months, but then we're going to make a move and we're going to figure out what we're doing with the main structure. And obviously, if that's not going to work, his suggestion should be revived and brought into the next fiscal year.
Mr. Quintal? Charlie, go ahead.
Yes, Derek, I'd like to just commend you. All those accomplishments that you just put up couldn't have gotten done without your leadership. You know, you come in, we hired you to come in and take a look at the town and see what needs to be fixed. And you did just that. You come in, you observed, you talked to the community, you listened to people, you talked with your department heads, sat down with them, let them have inputs and what we needed to improve things. You worked well with the boards, and it's because of that all of the accomplishments got done. You know, like you said, the negotiations with the union contracts, it was a pleasure. You were respectful, and again, you listened, and that's why all these accomplishments got done in such a short time. And I just can't wait. One of the best things we did was hire you. The second best thing we did is extend your contract. And Betty was a huge part of that. You know, she really pushed it, wanted to get that done, and it was the right thing to do. And I can't wait to see what you do in the future. So I just want to thank you for making you're making our board look good, I believe, and you're really helping the town. So I just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie. Mr. Quintal?
Thank you, Betty. Derek, hats off to you and Brad. I'm glad to see that we brought you both on, change of management, and for the new direction of the town. It's been, a couple of years, minus 1.5 a year for COVID, but what a turnaround. And I have to reiterate on what John said, because I was going to actually bring that up about the Water Conservation Committee, that it wasn't so much that, me personally didn't like their idea. One of the ideas I was worried about, one size fits all and what that actually means, but was really a discussion point, as how much you use and all that, so I think that needs to come back to whoever might be sitting here and get to work on that. That would be very nice. And yeah, we had a reputation a while back where we were called frequent flyers up in Boston, because every disagreement went full gavit up there. And I'm not exaggerating, that's where they went. So I'm glad to see that's turning around. I'm glad to see, I've said it before, and I think John noticed it now since you've been back too, that the morale in this building is a lot different. So that says a lot to yous and to the board and to the people that actually work in this building. So that's all I'm going to say to that, and good job.
Mr. Helm?
I'll keep this short. Try not to repeat anything others have said. Derek, thank you. Brad, thank you for all the work that you've done in the last year. That's quite a list. And having been in town government, whether on the FinCom or on the select board for a decade, it's an amazing list. I'm not sure the residents will really understand how incredible it actually is. But we brought you on board to take this town in a new direction. This all is evidence that you have been quite successful, and I'm really looking forward to future years. So congratulations to both of you. You're a great team. You've really energized the directors, the employees. There's a whole new feel around town. You've done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I guess, what can we say? The band is back together. That's pretty much it for me. So you guys have done a great job. Brought division heads along and department heads along that, weren't so thrilled about the ideas in the beginning, but they seem to have embraced the new direction that you've led this town in. So, and I have to say that, I don't think it all could have been completed without these board members up here as well, because one thing is that we support you 100%. And I hope, you know, when there's a new board, hopefully not all of them new, after May 20th, I hope they provide you with the same backup that we did, because you guys have done an amazing job. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, if I could, so I appreciate all the kind words. But as you all know, I mean, this is a team approach, and it's, you know, it starts over here. You guys put together the team that you wanted to make these things happen, and we just execute. You know, and I say to folks all the time, like, it's our job, you know, whatever direction you give us on Tuesday morning, we wake up on Wednesday morning, we execute. That's our job. So you all five of you have been super supportive, not only myself, but of all of our department heads and our administrators, but even our frontline staff. And so, you know, they're the ones that did all the work, as you all know. So, you know, I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir on this, but, you know, I'm really excited to come to work most days. Not every day, because there's some bad days, but most days I really love coming to work just because just the people I get to work with. And so they do great work, and you know, I say on a regular basis that when I worked for the city of Worcester, it's 3 times the population, 3 times the budget, some really smart people, and I would rack and stack any person, any department head, any division head I've ever worked with in Plymouth against any one of them, because that's the level of professionalism you have working in this town. And I don't think people realize it because they see some of the weaknesses in our game, but we got some really great people that work here, and we should all be proud of that.
Most definitely. Okay. The next order, you don't need a vote or anything, right, Derek? This was just informational. And we'll get that up on the website as soon as possible. So the next order of business is public hearing, change of ownership, Tavern on the Wharf, LLC, 6 Tavern Wharf. I don't think we really need much of anything unless, Mr. Trifletti, you're here for that, if you'd like to say something.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Stephen Trifletti, I'm here as the attorney for Tavern on the Wharf LLC, which is seeking to add Peter Lucido as a 50% member of the LLC. Initially, it was filed with Paul Tupa as the sole LLC member. He is here this evening with me. We have already changed the records with the Secretary of State's office to show Peter Lucido as manager for the LLC. There's no consideration for the transfer of interest, and technically, Mr. Tupa is transferring 50% of his 100% membership interest to Mr. Lucido. Thank you. If you have any questions, be happy to answer.
Any questions from the board? None? No. Do a motion? A motion by Mr. Mahoney, seconded by Mr. Quintal. Discussion? All those in favor? Roll call. Mr. Helm?
Yes.
Mr. Blitzer? You're muted. I saw your lips say yes.
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney? Yes. Mr. Quintal?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Before we have our select board discussion, we just came out of executive session, and the Water Street project was a part of that, certain aspects of it that we can discuss. So, Mr. Brandisi, if you could just like to give a quick update.
Sure, I'm happy to give a summary of where we stand with the sewer interceptor project on Water Street. As of today, there's been agreement made with our town engineers, our contract resident engineers, and with Northern Construction that we will restart construction on May 22nd, which is this coming Monday, and that's to install the wells. We expect construction to go through June 30th. At that time, I would say around June 17th, we'll see a lot of the heavy equipment will be removed from the site, and we'll start putting the road back together. With the last couple of days in June, say around June 27th, June 28th, that time period, it'll just be line striping, things of that nature. Once this phase of the project is complete, assuming things go well, we'll be 50% complete at that time. We'll have to come back to this project sometime in the fall. That is yet to be determined when that'll be. We know it'll be sometime after Labor Day and before Thanksgiving, but then to complete the other 50% of the project. I do plan to have a meeting this Friday, 9 a.m. Here at Town Hall, over at the Great Hall, so that we can provide more details. I'm just kind of giving a 40,000-foot overview of right now what the construction timeline looks like, but we're happy to meet with businesses, interested residents and neighbors here this coming Friday, 9 a.m. at the Great Hall, to answer all their questions and give more detail of what that construction schedule looks like.
Thank you. Okay, Select Board open discussion, new business, letters, old business. Anyone? Mr. Mahoney.
So, Madam Chair, on behalf of the board and the town, I'd like to give you this present for your service for the last 6 years and beyond to the community. It is a 400th edition, 400th anniversary edition of Plymouth Plantation by William Bradford.
Oh.
Okay?
Thank you.
So I know you got a beach bag earlier. You can put that in your bag and you'll have some reading to do down on the beach. So I'd just like to say a couple of things. I'm not a native of the community, but since my involvement, and especially when you look at budgetary issues, and I am not qualified to explain why, but I think I'm comfortable in saying that I think that over the last several decades, the village of Manomet had never risen above maybe a secondary fiscal consideration in the community's budget. And I think that changed when you get on the board, and you are to be commended for not only speaking up, but, you know, for the village as a whole, but especially for the White Horse Beach area, okay? And the last thing I'll say is that I once asked Mr. Brindisi, in his almost 30 years of being involved in government in multiple communities, what his favorite election cycle was. And he told me it was the 2017 Select Board race in Plymouth, Massachusetts. So I just want to thank you for carrying me across the finish line that year, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate your kind words, and I will so much miss this and that over there on the little TV. So, you know what? We're a dysfunctional family that I adore. So how's that? Mr. Quintal.
Well, Betty, these are also on behalf of the board.
Thank you.
And, you know, I sat here, I don't know how many years, but off and on, and I met some fantastic people that I can call my friend. And one of them was in the audience. I never knew Butch before sitting with him on the board. And a great friendship came out of that. And I have to say the same thing with you. Not only am I going to miss sitting here with you, even if I'm sitting here, but more than that, Betty, you've been a friend. And there's some things going on in my life, you know. And you just been there every day, and I love you. And I'm going to miss you, but I'm really not, because I'm going to talk to you every day. So.
You think I'm going to leave you guys alone? Do you guys really think I'm going to leave you alone?
No.
Because I'm not.
No. So, and you really love this community, as I do and as we all do. But we moved some big rocks there, we have.
We certainly
did.
And
it's been a good run.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I wouldn't have changed anything.
Me
Thank
neither.
you. On behalf of the people in this town, they all thank you. You've been a voice for everybody that ever called you, or emailed you, or whatever they do on Facebook.
Some good, not
well,
so
you know,
good.
it is what it is.
Right.
That's what goes with it. But you're definitely been a good friend, and I'm glad I got that out of this term. And keep it going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Betty?
Charlie?
First of all, Dickie, we love you and we support you, you know that. And we're there for you. Betty, I'd just like to say, I want to congratulate you, Betty, for your 6 years of service, public service to the town of Plymouth. You gave so much to this town. Your passion is second to none, in what you believe in. And you really care about your constituents, especially the Manaman White Horse Beach area. When I get elected, a few people ask me, what are you going to do with working with Betty? How are you going to work with Betty? I'll tell you, and my answer was very simple. Betty's very passionate, and I want to get Betty to spread her passion through the whole town. And you've done that since I've been on the board. And I really appreciate that. It's been an honor and a privilege to sit with you. And I just want to say one more thing to kind of echo what Dickie said. Not only are you passionate, but you're a very caring person. And as you know, I've had some health issues over the last couple of years. And currently, I'm going through some issues now, some health issues now that I'm recuperating from. And you've been right there for me. And I won't forget this. So I congratulate you and I wish you well. And I know I haven't seen the last of you, Betty. I love you. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. And I love you guys too, so. Mr. Helm.
Well, let me just change the tone of this. Because, Betty, I have worked with you, beside you, and known you longer than anybody here, from our days on the FinCom.
Right.
Many, many years ago, which was when they mistakenly sat you next to me. We had assigned seats there as well. And I knew from the very first meeting that you were trouble. And you've done nothing but demonstrated that you are super passionate and you will go in the direction you are going in with passion. And I think that's great. But this isn't about what you used to do, at least my little talk. You're running for town meeting.
Right.
I think you have an interesting adventure ahead of you in town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I have no doubt that you don't intend to remain merely a town meeting member. So everybody buckle your seatbelts. But anyway, I congratulate you on all your previous years of service, but also with the knowledge that you will have many years ahead of you. It's just not like you to go away. So, I mean, that's and and I say that as a friend. So, anyway, congratulations on everything you've done and been for the town so far, and it'll be interesting, and I look forward to seeing what you do in the years on down the road.
Thank you, and thank you everyone so much. I talk about my board, and I can honestly say that I hope you believe how much I care about each one of these guys, because they are like big brothers, little brothers, and I just, because I know we're all about the same age except for the young buck over there in the end. So, but I have to say that, it does take a lot to do this job. You cannot half-ass being a selectman. And I only said that because he said the S word earlier. But one of the things that I really want to shine a light on is my family. My husband and my kids have stood by me 100%, all the way. I've taken a lot of time away from them. They never complained. They always knew that Tuesday night you eat a sandwich or you eat something because I got to go to a meeting. So I can't take that away from them, and I'm super excited to be in another venture down at Mass Maritime, where my eldest son attends. I'm so thrilled with my youngest son, who has had the ability to work with, in my opinion, one of the greatest people in this town, and that is Mr. Quintal. So, again, I want to thank you all. It was a pleasure to serve you. I'm not saying I won't be back, but I'm just going to take a little break. So, thank you so much. Anything else? Anybody? You do? I'll take a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second. We all do.
Okay, discussion. All the discussion I have is May 20th. Get out there and vote. Vote as if your life depends on it, because it does. Thank you. Yes, unanimous.
Yes.